So one of the most common questions I see related to virtual assistants on the internet is, how much does it cost? Well, it's not a simple question to answer, but I'm going to answer it for you, coming right up. Okay, so why isn't it a simple question? What does it cost for a VA? Well, there's many different types of VAs, different types of services, so let's just run through some of that. And if you're wondering, what does it cost for a VA? I'll tell you right up, it could be anything from about $3 an hour to $50 an hour, and even higher. But let me explain why that is. Okay, first of all, you need to decide whether you actually want a virtual assistant, or I would call it a freelancer. So a virtual assistant, to my mind, and look, this is obviously open to interpretation, but a virtual assistant to me is someone who's full-time, working for me, just me, not anyone else. You know, they're part of my team. They just happen to be not in my office. So to my mind, that's a virtual assistant, and I have lots of them. I have 7 virtual assistants supporting me directly in my business, and they're full-time members of my team. They even come over here and spend time in Sydney with me and working in our office and so on. They are just full-time team members who happen to be based somewhere else. Okay, so to my mind, that's a virtual assistant. If you are looking for someone to provide support on individual tasks, like I need this designed, or I need that edited, I need this document produced, to me that's more of a freelancer type model, where you might be going to someone who is also working for lots of other clients, and they're just doing specific tasks for you. Or maybe they're spending 2 hours a day doing something for you, maybe your CRM or whatever. To me, that's kind of more a freelancer, but hey, you know, it's a very gray area. So the first question you really need to ask yourself is, do I want a full-time person or someone who's just available for a certain number of hours? Now, I know that it's very popular, particularly in the US and the UK, where a lot of very competent people have left corporates, you know, admin support staff, and they're setting themselves up as a virtual assistant. So that sort of model works really well if you want someone who is a native speaker, obviously, of your language, who understands your business culture intimately, who has perhaps worked within businesses like yours, physically worked in them. You know, maybe that gives you a degree of comfort dealing with someone like that. To my mind, it kind of negates a lot of the value of having a virtual assistant, because one of the biggest values in my mind is the cost differential by actually using, what do they call it, geo arbitrage, by hiring people in much lower cost countries. But, you know, I do understand there's a huge market out there, particularly in US, UK, other parts of Europe and so on, and I totally get that. So to my mind, though, if you're paying someone, say, $30 an hour for you know, someone local in the UK, US or whatever, if you need full-time support, you might as well just hire someone in your office, surely, because it's going to cost you $60,000, $70,000 a year for that full-time resource. Whereas perhaps overseas, whether it be, you know, India, Philippines, all my team are in the Philippines, you know, it might be costing me $10,000 a year for a full-time person. To me, that's kind of the big difference with having virtual assistants overseas. So what's it going to cost you? Depends predominantly, I guess, in what country they're based in. And that's obviously totally up to you. You know, you're the client. What sort of support do you want? You'll find loads of other videos actually on this channel, a lot of them made by virtual assistants in my business. And I think a lot of people think it's safer to get someone in my country, maybe in my city, to support me, because of language and culture and all the rest of it. Check out some of the other videos on the channel. You'd be surprised. Our VAs are awesome. But I digress. What's the cost? So again, if you're thinking part-time or full-time, part-time, you know, it's a little bit more like sort of freelancing. I've used part-time virtual assistants myself in the past, and I found it a challenge because I had multiple clients. They were trying to juggle priorities. I didn't own their time, and sometimes I became very aware that my stuff might have been a lower priority and it was taking time to get done. But that obviously depends on the professionalism of the individual VA. But personally, I would much rather have full-time and then find work for them to do. So if you're wondering then about, you know, what is the whole sort of cost equation here, and how do you get value out of it? That's a very individual decision, I think. So you need to think about, how much do I actually want to outsource to a virtual assistant? And if it's just a few hours here and there and it's specific tasks, and you have a comfort factor with someone, you know, in your own country, go for that. That's probably absolutely the right solution for you. If you're looking at a lower cost solution and you're thinking you might want to have someone full time, then I would probably look at an overseas virtual assistant full time and make them part of your team. If you're wondering about sort of home-based versus office-based, there are videos about that on the channel too, and I'll put a link below, or maybe one of our editors can put a link up here on the screen. There are pros and cons of that too. I've had home-based virtual assistants, I would say overseas, who obviously had multiple clients, and sometimes I found it difficult, as I mentioned, to manage priorities, but communication, and sometimes internet was down and so on. I'm sure that would be less of an issue if you know, you're US-based or UK-based and had one there. So I tended very quickly to go to the office-based virtual assistant, and that's why I actually set up my own virtual assistant company. It works so well. So you're getting that geo arbitrage, you're getting that benefit of having people working in a much lower cost economy, but you're getting that level of professionalism where, you know, they're professionally supervised, they're professional staff anyway. You know, they have all the IT support and HR support and backup staff, you know, if they're sick and all that kind of stuff. So I have a high degree of comfort with that model, and I kind of don't really see the point of having a virtual assistant sort of in my own country with the high costs. So anyway, back to the original question. What does it cost to have a VA? Anywhere from $3 an hour to $50 an hour, and depending whether you want part-time, full-time. Full-time could be anything from $10,000 a year to, you know, $70,000, depending what country they're based in, their skill sets and so on. So, sorry, it was a bit of a ramble, but I just thought I'd cover that off because it is such a common question. Now, if you have any more specific questions on this topic, do comment below. I will personally answer all of those. If you enjoyed the video, do like, share. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe, because there are dozens and dozens of videos already on this channel, and new ones come out every week. So hit subscribe, hit the bell, that way you get notified every time we have a new video coming out, and they generally come out on a Wednesday. I'll see you next week.